Okay. Good evening. Tonight is a study session of the Mahomet Seymour Board of Education, and we'll call the meeting to order. It is 5:33 p.m. on Monday, August 5th. At this time, I'd like to remind everyone who's a guest to please sign in, and for everyone in the room to silence your cell phones, which I don't think I've done yet. Okay, we're good. I'd also like to remind our visitors that in order to facilitate an effective meeting, we ask those who wish to make comments to the board to read the visitor guidelines, which is found on the table right outside the door, and complete the public participation form, and to get those to Dr. Hall tonight, since Dawn is not with us. Can we have roll call for attendance, please?
Giles?
Here.
Keith?
Here.
Schultz?
Here.
Larson?
Here.
Hennessy?
Here.
McComb?
Here.
And Henrik's not here. 6 present.
And he'll be
on his way.
He'll be zooming in here in a second at a high rate of speed, I think. Let's stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. You may be seated. Board members, you've had an opportunity to look at the agenda for tonight. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Actually, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda and add a discussion item about future meeting schedules.
Okay.
Second.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Hennessy, was that you?
Second. Yes.
Okay, so the agenda is amended to include a discussion item on future meeting schedules. We've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda with that change. Any discussion on any of that?
Where will that go into the agenda as you're proposing it?
I don't know, because I did not know that was coming, so I need to think about that for a minute.
Right after public comment would work.
Probably makes the most sense.
Oh.
Are you
Okay.
waiting for a second?
No.
No, we got it.
She's
I just,
so-
I was just discussion. Okay.
Yes, I'll second.
Amending it.
Hmm?
Do we need a vote to amend?
The motion was to approve it as amended.
Okay.
So we just need to vote, I think, on that. All in favor of approving the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comment. Has there been any requests for public comment?
No.
Okay. Next, we have the discussion item we just added, future meeting schedule.
So I just found out that our plan for our joint meeting with the village is the same night as the high school open house. I was wondering if it's possible for us to move back an hour so both board members and community members that are attending that open house can join us. And it might make sense to actually do it in the high school auditorium if that's okay. That's all right. Or somewhere in the high school. Makes it a little more accessible for people.
That includes us in the village and I think all the taxing bodies, correct? Have been invited to that?
The board meeting is just the village board of trustees and the school board.
Okay.
Certainly other taxing bodies are invited.
Okay.
So we can look into that.
We can approach the village and see if they're willing to do that.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we can't move it back, I think we should try and reschedule it. That seems like a significant population of parents who might want to attend and community members who might want to attend. And, you know, I didn't even know that because I don't have a high school student yet.
I just
But it seems like we didn't schedule it the week before because we had conflicts with school schedules, I believe. So, you know, I think there's no urgency to have that meeting right away. So I feel like if we need to schedule that at a different time, then we should look at that.
Okay. We can approach the village with that.
How are we going to circle back on that?
I'll let
Because
everybody
we don't
know.
have a meeting between
I'll communicate via email.
now and then. Okay.
We do. We have one on the 19th.
Oh, okay.
We'll make some arrangements before the 19th, though,
Yeah.
and see if we can get it changed.
Because we originally were going to be in the Edgar room. Is that correct? At Middletown.
It's currently
That was
scheduled
originally-
for the
The
Edgar room
library.
at the library.
Yeah. That's where it's currently scheduled to be. Okay. All right, good. At this time, a closed session is necessary for number one, self-evaluation practices and procedures of professional ethics when meeting with a representative of a statewide association like IASB, of which the public body is a member, and for two, litigation when an action against affecting or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. Is there a motion to go into closed session for those reasons?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
I would really appreciate if we could talk about how we came to this decision. Just, I know there was a lot of back and forth about, first we talked about it being closed, then it was talked about it being open and then closed. And I'm just a person that likes to understand how things are done, so if we could just briefly.
Well, we came to the conclusion after talking to Mr. Landon, and he recommended that we do it in closed session. And that's been our practice in the past.
And that's what your email had said too. I was one of the people that said maybe we should have it be open. Everybody that's newly elected and some of us that are, I consider myself still sort of newly elected, 2 years, talked about, that being an issue of having everything presented in the public. And I was one of the people that said that same thing to me. So.
I don't remember a vote ever happening though. So my problem is that if the board is going to make decisions, I saw emails going around that say Lori, Max, and Lindsay talked and decided. It's not actually how boards work. Decisions made by boards have to happen with a vote.
And we're going to vote right now, and we're either going to go into closed session
No, I
or we're not.
understand that, but what I'm saying is that the language that keeps being used in emails and communications that go on, I guess behind, not out in the open because they come via email. There's a lot of language about we have decided, and I find that highly problematic.
I don't think anyone said we decided. I think we
actually
said
printed the
recommended.
email, so.
Well, if I said decided, I apologize for that.
But this seems to be a pattern for me of behavior of, really trying to control how the decisions on this board get made. And it seems to me to be decisions are being made behind the scenes, not including the entire board and not via a vote.
Okay.
And I think that that's problematic, and I think that it's intentional. And I've heard discussions since being elected to the board about plans in place to, I'll just say, make sure that some board members have voices that are heard and some members don't have voices that are heard. And then I've attended meetings where agenda items haven't been added per some board members' requests. Certain items are not on the agenda certain months when certain numbers don't align in terms of voting. And as we go into tonight's session to talk about board self-evaluation, I'm not even sure that we can get to that, to be totally honest, because I don't believe that there's a good faith effort by this board to include all voices and to have discussions about the board.
Well, the emails going back and forth on this was a good faith effort to try to do what everybody wanted to have done. Now, quite frankly, when I asked for responses or opinions, I got one from Jeremy.
The problem is that the Open Meetings Act specifically bans you from having discussions via email. So if I were to reply to that, that starts a discussion, and that violates the Open Meetings Act. And so when I say we need to take a look at how this board makes decisions, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, I think that's something that we can talk about tonight when we're having this meeting.
And I'm going to just unpeel the onion a little bit in that I think the board is made up of 7 individuals, and I have been on the board for 2 years, and I have had people in the community come to me and talk about the way that the perception comes out of being hostile and unkind, and I feel that and I see that too. And in order to make a best effort for our community to do the best service we can, we need to build relationships. And as you're starting tonight, gentlemen, to facilitate our discussion, I mean, there is a clear, transparent, not a level of trust. And the people that are affected by that the most are the people that work in our buildings and pay our taxes and work in our schools and are coming to the meetings now, okay? So there's just not an equal playing field, and if you can, just want in the effort to be transparent, get that out. It comes from the press, it comes from individuals. I mean, there's not a level of respect, and we need to start there before we can unpeel the layers that make us serve our students, our faculty, and our community the very best. And I got elected 2 years ago on a good faith effort, and I have never been blindsided by anything. I feel like the level of respect has been there. You can ask questions, and now it's not so much that way. And again, that's of 7. That's not putting at 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not naming anybody, but we need to start there to best service our entire community.
And I'm not sure how you do that when you've actually heard your fellow board members talk about plans to circumvent your voice and to block votes and maybe skip meetings in case the numbers weren't there, to maybe bring contracts and sign them before new board members take over, to have meetings and discussion about how to not have people come and be able to share public comment. And what I'm saying is that I am going to have a hard time getting past just that, because it's not me who had that discussion about circumventing and silencing voices. And yet, I hear back through the community, we're just not playing nice, we're just not getting along, and I find it really difficult when we haven't started from a place of honesty. And if we're gonna be real honest, there was an active, concerted effort to make sure that voices won't be able to do stuff. And then I've been to a couple of board meetings where I've seen that actually enacted with surgical precision. And so, as one of the people that is being told in the community, you just have to play nice and you have to learn to get along, I am not the person who had those discussions. I am not the person who decided that a plan to maybe skip a meeting or two if the numbers and the votes weren't there. That's not my plan. In terms of, does that bug me personally? I mean, I think it's a little bit childish, but it gets in the way of what we're supposed to be doing here. And what we're supposed to be doing here is working for teachers and kids.
Well, in that dialogue, what I would recommend should take place amongst these people instead of the hearsay or things that happen in the community, because there's a constant negativity in the world that we live in as a whole. Anybody who opens the newspaper or opens any kind of media will see that. I don't want to play into that. We had a discussion one time where I said, I think we can all get along, that it needs to start between all of us. I don't care what someone that's not on this board says, because when you give me your word, I will take it as fact, man.
I'm not talking about hearing this
Your
from
fact.
other community members. I'm hearing it from the voices in this room sitting at this table.
All right, well, I don't recall myself saying that, but you can
Okay.
back it up with fact. I just want to make sure that that's where we need to start, then it's obvious that we need to start, because we are going to hurt our community, our schools, our funding, all of that, if we don't make it work this row.
How do you make that work?
Well, maybe we'll talk about that.
I think that's what we're here tonight to
Why
try to
we're
do.
here. This is not ideal. I will say to Max, as the vice president of the board, when we talked about having this meeting, and in August, I was like, how do you have like a board orientation, self-evaluation 3 months after you started? That's because our schedules, this is when it aligned, okay? So are our priorities aligned? And I'm part of that too. I don't know, but you don't take over a job, anybody, even myself, and say, oh, and by the way, in 3 months, you're gonna make your plans for it. That's not efficient. And that's where we are. This is where we are, so let's take where we are and let's work and build and move forward.
So back to Megan's original point, I think that the appropriate way for a board to make a decision like this is to not try and do it via email, but simply say in email, at this meeting on August 5th, we will discuss and make a decision about whether or not it's going to be an open or closed session. I think that was the fundamental problem. It wasn't done that way. It was done in a way so that we sent an email out, and the email said, let's decide via email how we're going to do it that night. That happens all the time, and I don't quite understand it. It feels like we constantly are having these decisions happen before the meeting when that's not what a representative body like us should be doing. It should be done in the meeting where the public can see and participate in the discussion.
The public doesn't participate in the discussion other than the comment period because it is an active session of a board meeting. Those conversations should take place. I need to talk to you about this and be well in advance so that we can verse all the board members.
So actually, that's it's an existing practice of this board, that's true, but that's not a required practice. The public can participate, and like you said, they do participate in the public comment section of our current setup. So yes, it doesn't happen with this board right now that they're participating in the midst of the discussion, but it doesn't have to be that way. So that's all I would make the point for this particular decision. Is it's a good example, it's a very tame example of where a decision is being made preemptively. And it's not an official decision, because like you said, we're about to vote, and that's the
Right.
official decision.
Okay.
But if the majority makes a decision privately in the email, and not to be deceptive or for some evil reason, anything like that, that's not at all what this is about. But the whole point of having a deliberative body like this is to do this publicly and together, the seven of us.
To be clear, we had discussed in a meeting, we had not made a decision, but we discussed the pros and cons of doing an open and closed. Okay?
That's correct, yeah.
All right.
But a lot of the discussion about even to have this evaluation happened prior to even the election. And then the language used since the election has been the board decided. It seems to me that when you have half of the board turn over, it might behoove you to have a new discussion with the new people about some of the decisions that have been made previously and make sure that people are on board. And I never saw a vote of the previous board to actually engage and do this self-evaluation. I never saw a vote to spend the money with the IASB. I'm not opposed to doing this, but I think we have a fundamental problem with the way that decisions get made on this board. And as a new board member, I do not feel like it is a level playing field. I have heard things that give me great pause and lead me to believe that perhaps it will never be a level playing field. That there's no intention of actually letting people add things to the agenda or vote or actually have a voice here. And that is not what the community asked for with its votes. It is not what I signed up to do here. And it's going to be extraordinarily difficult to move forward and do the work that's important for this board to do if all we're doing is for jockeying for control and spin. And that's what I feel like is happening. And this is just one single example of having been on the board since April 2nd, but never actually being asked. I mean, I saw an email that said the three new board members want it in open session. I found that interesting because I have never been asked what my opinion was. I have never had the opportunity to talk through the pros and cons of open versus closed. And all I've been told is we made this decision and pick a date. And I feel like that is one instance among many, and that is pretty problematic for the work that this board has to do.
Well, I think your inference of saying, and because you are speaking for me when you say there's a division in the board, I will vote for whatever I think is the best decision. I don't care what someone says. I will not be influenced by that. I was just like you, elected by my constituents to make the best decisions for the people in the community, and I will do that. So put that on tape, record, write it up, whatever. That's where my voice is. Whatever's best for the community, I will do. So I don't want to be just like I feel like you feel in your stating that there's been a grouping. I don't want to be grouped into that, this side, that side. We are a board, and I want to work together. And this is the second time that you and I know, had that conversation because we had it in another meeting previously.
For me, I just want to decide on rules of how we're going to engage with each other, because
I would agree.
it is, I mean, my husband could tell you, because he's heard it ad nauseum, when things happen, I think the people that agree with the decision when something's done improperly are the ones that should stand up the most, because they don't have the sour grapes excuse that people give them, right? So, like in our national politics, if the Congress won't pass immigration laws and Obama says, if you won't pass the law, I'll do it with executive order, I think the people that should stand up the most who are the ones who agree with the immigration, because that's not the way our government runs. If the Republicans decide not to vote for a Supreme Court candidate, that's not the way our government is supposed to run. And so the people who don't want that guy are the ones that should stand up the most. And I don't disagree with any of these decisions. I just want to have a procedure, and I wanted us to follow it, whether we're the majority, the minority, whether we like the outcome, whether we don't like the outcome, just that we do everything, because that's how you stop having anarchy, right? I mean, that's how you don't have dictators, because you have rules that you're going to follow no matter what. And that's really what I would like to see us come up with and stick with.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion on this?
What are we voting on right now?
Closed session.
There's a
Closed
motion on the
session.
floor.
Motion on the
and a
floor to
second
go into
to
closed
into
session.
closed
Okay.
session.
Okay.
Is
Roll-
there a discussion that should take place about that then?
Mhm.
Because that was a comment that Mrs. Hennessy had made, that she didn't feel like.
It's my understanding that this was the discussion on that.
Okay, all right.
I will say the same thing in open session as I will in closed session, but I have to say that I do not believe that the way that decisions are made or the way that voices are being heard or included or excluded to date has been fair and level. And that is where we have to start, because any decision that does not have a foundation of fair and level is a moot point. And I have had, I shared with Lindsay, when we had our one-on-one, I have real concerns about this board being broken, and I have real concerns about the things that I heard board members say. I think it violates the oath of office that they took. And I'm not sure how we're going to build trust when I hear one thing at a certain time, I hear another thing at a certain time, because when you don't tell the truth all the time, give this lecture to my children, if you don't tell the truth all of the time, then I don't ever know when the truth is actually being stated. And so I have some real concern here about how we are going to take what has been said and what I have seen enacted to date and get to a place where we can start doing the work of the board.
I think we definitely have a trust problem. I think, and I want to be clear that I think you have to be careful about, you're talking about somebody who's not telling the truth. I have never not told the truth, especially as it relates to this board. So I think, yes, there's some definite underlying issues. So I think that we've got a lot of considerations to work out. If we're going to have any sort of trust, then yes, we have to work through all those things. But be careful about accusing somebody of not telling the truth.
I'm not accusing anyone of not telling the truth. I'm saying I.
But that's what you just said.
I'm
That's what you
telling the
just
truth
said.
when I say I have heard people say one thing in one scenario and a different thing in another scenario. So you can call that whatever you would like if you want to put a different word on it. What I am saying is I am going to have trouble knowing which I am going to believe and which one is one that we're going to act on. I don't know another word for when you say one thing in a certain situation and a different thing in another situation. So I'm just saying I have personally experienced that, and so for me, we have more work to do than to decide on how agendas get made.
Absolutely.
Because fundamentally,
I'd agree with
we
that.
are in big trouble if we can't get even past the, do I really believe what someone is telling me or not?
All right, we've got a motion. We've had discussion. And a lot of this discussion, I think, carries over till later in the evening and some of the things we're going to talk about. We need a roll call vote on the motion.
Larson,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Giles,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Present.
Keith,
No.
Schultz,
Yes.
McComb.
Yes. Okay, we are going to move into closed session, and that will be with our friends from the ISB. We also have one legal matter to talk about. We will come out of closed session at the ending of the evening. My guess is that will be late, and we don't project any business to be conducted at the end of closed session. So, thank you for those that came out tonight, and we'll take a 5-minute recess and move into closed session.